Well, a very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. Welcome to the channel or welcome back. Thank you for joining me. If you're not aware of who I am, I'm Anah Parreli, and of course I create the content that you see on YouTube. And I do have a website where I'm currently upgrading it. We'll talk about that later, but that's to give you some information and tips, because this is the channel is basically about sharing information for people. Now, before I get into the content today, I just want to acknowledge that I will be spending some time responding to a question that I received on one of my videos. And for those of you who are just looking for a channel update, I've got timing stamps in the description so you can find the areas of interest to you, especially if you're looking to come to the next event, which is on Wednesday next week. I'll talk about that later as well. In the meantime, please feel free to say good day to me. Let me know where you're from. Here in Perth, Western Australia, it is a beautiful day, actually. I'm so grateful for that. And I forgot to mention, look, my apologies for being late with the Sunday. This is an ongoing thing at the moment. I haven't got time to talk about today as to why I'm becoming late, but I am going to try and keep the Sunday yarning on Sunday. But sometimes it's going to carry over to Monday morning when I do the recording, like for today. Now, before I start talking about the content, just a reminder to the new and old visitors to the channel that I invite comments and responses, and I look forward to it. I love it when people respond to the videos, because that makes me feel that I'm doing something right, it helps to keep me motivated, as does a thumbs up. If you find anything on any of my videos useful, if you give us a thumbs up, that would be great. Anyway, without further ado, let's jump into today's video. So, as always, I like to start out the yarning with a focus on gratitude. And this week I'm keeping it, I suppose, a bit simple, but it's actually, the simplest things in life are quite often the best things. Last week I did a shout out to family because they pulled together in a crisis. This week I'm doing a shout out to friends because I've been lucky enough to have a couple of visits to my home this week to make me realise I am blessed. And, sometimes we tend to take friends for granted. We don't necessarily appreciate them when they're around us. And for me, it's like, it's a reminder to put my focus on friendship and appreciate the value of good friends. Now, the thing is, the truth be told, that as we get older, we do realise that there's a truth to that old saying of, in my golden chain of friendship, or in your golden chain of friendship, consider me a friend. But as we get older, and I'm no spring chicken anymore, we start to realise that friends come and go in our life. It doesn't mean that there's animosity or acrimony. It just means that we can take different paths, and we may not be living near our friends anymore, but we just grow in different rates and different directions and whatever. I mean, sometimes, of course, friendships do turn to dust. Other times they will reconnect later on down the track, and we're all a bit different. But then also the other thing that I've started to observe over the last couple of years is that my friends transition, which means they lose their body, they go to the other side. And while obviously I'm quite spiritual and I accept that as part of life, when we don't physically have us in our environment anymore or have those good friends there, it does feel a little bit like a loss sometimes. And it's a reminder, I guess, to really appreciate the friends that we have while they're still here. I mean, obviously, if you've got mediumship skills and that kind of thing, actually, that might be a story for another day. This is me going off on a tangent, actually, despite the transcript, is, when we do have psychic and mediumship abilities, we don't always necessarily have the capacity to be able to communicate directly with those loved ones that have transitioned. And quite often this is because we're attached to the outcome. I know some brilliant mediums that if they want to connect with perhaps their parents or children that have passed over, they go and buy services from another quality medium, or they get their messages through somebody else, because they doubt the messages that they get. They think it's probably a bit of a figment of their imagination if they start seeing spirit. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Right now, I just want to put the focus on and be grateful for the friends, the people that turn up in my life that I get to interact with, friendship is interactive. Sometimes we give, sometimes we take. So for my friends, I say thank you. So the question I'm answering today is about clairsentience, which was Ileana, actually. I don't know if his name is or her name is pronounced as Ilian or Ileana. I'm just going off the moniker that I see on the video. They have asked what they can do to increase or, I suppose, enhance their clairsentience. Now, to be clear, I guess we need to explain what clairsentience is for the people that don't know, right? So clairsentience is about feelings, not necessarily our emotional state, okay? A clairsentient can actually pick up on the emotions of somebody else, and that's called clairempathy, I guess. Or that's a way to describe it. They can have very strong intuition by way of gut instinct. Not everything to do with the clairs is about seeing and hearing stuff. Claircognizance is another form of clairsentience because that's when you just know. So I'll just refer to my notes here so that I explain it clearly. The empaths, those are the people that feel another person's emotions, right? We will all have met somebody along the way who works with energy that says, I'm an empath, I can't help it. Well, just to be clear, I'm a human being as well as a spirit, and I get very frustrated by people that complain about being an empath and picking up on these emotions and then saying I can't help it, because the bottom line is, yes, you can help it. We make a choice when we choose to pick up on other people's energy. Just letting you know, my dog did a big shake there, so I have a feeling he's going to get active today. But anyway, going back to that, if you are an empath saying that, I can't help it, if you go and visit my website, you're going to see the stuff that I've put up on auras and energy sharing. And I don't know if I've actually put up, I think that's next on the agenda, is to put up techniques and strategy for shielding your aura now, and also for clearing and purifying it. Because if you don't have control over the empathy aspect and you still pick up on people's energy and their emotional state, well, what you can do is actually purify your aura. And I would recommend anybody that's working with energy that experiences this in a way that they feel that they're suffering, that they learn how to clear and cleanse their aura and how to do it quickly, okay? Empathy, though, I must say, is a really good way to start testing, I guess, your clairsentience. I would be a liar if I didn't say that, yes, I am also an empath. And that was one of the ways that I first started developing my psychic gifts, shall we say. And that was through picking up on the feelings, the intuition, which is that gut instinct that, it almost comes down to claircognizance, the clear knowing. You just know what you need to do. For people that have got really reliable gut instinct, that's telling you whether something is right or wrong for you, or healthy or unhealthy for you. The claircognizance, okay, so gut instinct, there's actually a strategy from a guidance perspective. I haven't got time to talk about that today. I'll put a note that I'll talk about that strategy next week. I may have talked about it already on one of my previous yarnings, but it's not going to hurt to revisit it. But anyway, the intuitive gut instinct stuff is a really good way to start developing your gifts as well. Claircognizance is that clear knowing. A lot of the time people have got claircognizance and they don't actually know it, which is a bit of a funny thing. This is the people that will turn around and say to you, I don't know why I think this, I just know that this is going to be a train wreck or something. They can kind of predict the outcome to a situation because they simply know. An instance of this might be one time many, many years ago, before I was actively pursuing my gifts, was I had a dream. I'd gone to take an afternoon nap or something like that, and in the dream state I learned that my uncle was diagnosed with cancer. Anyway, that was another story. He survived it, by the way, and I knew that too from the dream, that he was going to survive. I felt that it was promising, but I also felt that it was a time I was getting a message to phone him up and say that I loved him and appreciated him now before he actually got his diagnosis. So often we turn around and tell people that we love and care about them, when the doomsday bell is chiming, and it's always much nicer to convey those messages and let people know they're appreciated before it gets to that. Anyway, all right, so moving on from claircognizance, other forms of clairsentience include things like feeling goosebumps. This is about becoming energy aware, feeling changes in temperature. You could feel cold or warm. You might get tingling or prickly skin sensations in high energy places. And in some places, you might even start to feel nausea. Now, I'm going to try and be a little bit quicker here. Suffice to say, because I like to draw on personal experience as far as sharing information goes, because I believe it helps to get a clearer picture of what I'm talking about. So anyway, one example of nausea and discomfort for me actually ended up being when my psychic gifts were well on their way by that stage, but I did a business course, and the course this is going back years ago, the course was being delivered in an old prison that had been converted. The prison was from colonial days, and it was actually down in Fremantle, a place in West Australia. So if you know of it, it's Fremantle Prison. Anyway, I didn't know much about Freo Prison, but when I attended the course, I felt that there were some energy pockets when I went into the building that left me feeling a little bit uncomfortable. And I ended up Googling whether or not, because I had the feeling it was actually people that had been sentenced to death. Anyway, long story short, my gut instincts were right because of the uncomfortable physical sensations that I had. I did some Googling on the prison itself, and I learned that where they were actually delivering the course, which, in hindsight, I think is a little bit insane, it was right next to, I don't know the proper term for it, but the way the death sentence was delivered in that prison was actually by hanging, and there was a drop zone, and where the course was being delivered was basically just there, right by where we were studying. Anyway, suffice to say, that was good for me to know that, because then what I did was, when I attended the course, I used to just bump up my protection on my aura and shielding. Excuse me while I cough. And at the end of the day, when I was leaving to go home, I would just do a clear and cleanse of my aura before I jumped in the car and stuff like that. So anyway, that's clairsentience for you folks. It's a messenger. So in answer to the question of how do we enhance and develop our clairsentience, that clear knowing, it was something I really had to think about, because it's one of those, I guess, gifts that came naturally to me. And I also developed it before I became aware of crystals. So I did it purely based on energy. So I've reflected on this. I had to pause for a moment and think to re-articulate. So in answer to the question, I had to really look back, and we're going back many years now, and think, well, how did I make it happen? How did I consciously learn to work with clairsentience as a messenger? And I remembered it was about my intention, which was actually based on love. Okay, so when we have clairsentience and when we've got purity of intention, the idea is about aligning our personal will with divine will and choosing to walk the path with love and kindness. To a lot, or to a large extent, it's also associated with trying to take control of your life and being willing and open to connect directly with our guides and guardians. For somebody like me, I'd made a lot of, I call questionable decisions in the past, and I was living through the karma of it. And so I wanted to be able to make better and healthier choices. And part of this motivation, or my intention, lies directly with the fact that I had 3 children, and I took my role as a mother, protector and nurturer of my family. I took that responsibility quite seriously, and part of that intention was to be able to create a more loving, stable and calm life for them and myself, because I always saw my children as being my gifts from God, and that my role in life was to help them to become adults and the best version, if you like, of themselves as adults, because they would become my gift to the world. You know, children are only with us for the short term, and then they're adults living their own path. So my intention was fairly pure, is where I'm going, and it was based on love. So we can all have good intentions, and not act upon them, is the bottom line. So we then need to be motivated to put that intention into practice. Now, my motivation also was to do with my children, and this was because I needed to be able to get that information right here, right now. I needed it in the present moment. For those people who aren't aware, if you're new to the channel, what I was dealing with, we're going back many years now, almost 3 decades actually, where I had basically left an abusive husband and father, and it was creating a lot of problems for me post relationship ending as well. He would come in and out of our lives and stir up dramas and problems. Life would be chaotic. Often when he arrived, I wouldn't see it happening before the event, and then I would become very emotionally reactive, at least until he had taken himself back out the picture. And there was a number of ways that he would be disruptive to the family unit. It could be to do with money. It could have been just through threats or whatever. It was a particularly unpleasant time. But either way, I'd made the decision that I wanted to have advance warning of when he would enter into the field, if you like, so that I could ensure that I retained and maintained a peaceful, calming, love-based approach to my life to make me a better and more loving parent. And I also want to incorporate kindness into my actions, and not have any of my actions determined by reactions, shall we say. And so that was basically the motivation for me to get cracking on it, and motivated I was. I worked very quickly to develop my connection to my guides and my guardians, and to do that personal and self-development. And I had a couple of different strategies. The first one, and I believe this probably was the first time that I felt energy per se, this would be the introduction to Clairsentience, was love motivated. I'd attended a Reiki healing just before my marriage ended, and I left. And when I was leaving, the lady who was the Reiki practitioner gave me a strategy, because she knew that I wanted to help stabilize my children through that process. So this tip is about gifting love, sending love. And the funny thing is, and I've said it again and again throughout my life teaching people, and when I revisit this part of my history for the sake of sharing information, I realize I was living it. I remember now, gifting precedes receiving. So I was motivated to send love, giving love to my children. That's in the first instance. And she gave me a tip. Anyway, so the tip was that obviously create the quiet space for yourself, and then imagine, visualize if you can, a beautiful pink light of love coming down through the top of your head, which is your crown chakra. I didn't know any of this stuff back then, okay? And then you visualize this light coming down through the top of your head into your space of your heart area, okay? Your heart chakra. Then you visualize this beautiful pink light going down your arms into your hands, and going from your hands into the heart of your loved one. So for me, that would be the child, my children. And anyway, so this is a pink light of love. And when you send it through to your children, you're pouring it not only from your hands, but it's coming from your heart chakra and going directly into the heart chakra of the people that you love. Now, of course, it's always going to be appropriate to do this for your children as a mother. the other thing that I did at some point in time, I can't remember when, was to send that pink light of love to a romantic partner. Now, in some ways, we might be talking about creating an energetic cord as well, which wouldn't be inappropriate between a mother and a child, and perhaps even an intimate partnered relationship. But once again, I encourage you to take a look at the aura content that I've got on my website. From there, and I don't remember the exact time frames now at what point I did what, but at some time through perhaps this period, I did my first Reiki attunement. I'm not sure. I'd started attending what was called a meditation group, which actually in reality was a psychic development group. But anyway, somewhere along the line, I decided that I wanted to obviously not only connect with my guides and guardians, but I also wanted to raise my light levels. Now, I didn't really understand anything of what I was doing in those days. Okay, this was pure gut instinct driving my personal development. And one of the ways I used to do it, because I knew that I didn't have a lot of knowledge, was I would tell my guides to direct me to somewhere, something, somebody, for me to enhance my light and love, if you like. And one of the regular habits that I had, now just a reminder, I was in a remote area, okay? We didn't have a lot of access to facilities. And one of the ways that I was able to access any form of information was actually to go to the local bookstore. And basically, I would just say to my guides, guide my hand to a book that I need for me right now. And then I would close my eyes and just grab the book. And one of the books that I found back in these days was this one. I think it was this one anyway, by Anah Parreli. And it's called Spiritual Growth, Being Your Higher Self. Now, suffice to say, I no longer have this book, and I've actually bought it today because I've gone online as I'm doing this video. I thought to myself, what happened to that book? I think I've purchased this book, honestly, about 5 times because it's such a good book, I have found. And it gives you activities on how to raise your personal vibration. I mean, you can see by the title, it's called Being Your Higher Self. I'm hoping that I've got the book cover of the right book and that I've ordered it. I'll soon find out when it arrives. But either way, it was a book by Anah Parreli, and it had some activities. And basically, it's a case of pacing the activities. Excuse me while I cough. And where you start by bringing light into your heart chakra and expanding that light of love. And the thing with these activities is they actually have sensation with them. So as you're doing these activities, you're actually building on clairsentience, which of course I didn't know at the time. What I will say though is ignorance can be absolute bliss, because I had a lot of fast track growth occur by doing these activities. And as I recall, with this book, there's 4 steps associated with which you're basically talking about receiving love, but it's connecting to your higher self. And I recall that the first step that I had to do, I struggled with it. And by the way, I did do it every night until I fell asleep. And I did it, I'm just thinking. The first couple of nights that I tried with activity 1, it was a little bit harder for me to actually do the visualization and to get the sensation coming through. The second stage, I recall, happened with relative ease. But what I think I did, and it frightened me, was I jump stepped. It just happened really quickly. It was like I blew it all open, and I went from, say, stage 2 to stage 4 overnight. Now, when I say I frightened myself, I did, because this is just sharing my experiences. What I had was an experience where I thought that I was actually in the process of dying and my soul was leaving my body. Of course, that was not the case. But what happened was I blew myself out of the meditative state because I got frightened. And then after I came out of that state and I processed the experience, which was an amazing and beautiful experience, I then tried consciously to get back there, but I was trying too hard. And what ended up happening was I fell asleep. And when I woke the next morning, I knew that I had gone back to where I was trying to go, that it was incredibly healing. It was an amazing experience. And if people, I don't use drugs, but if I was a drug user, or based on the descriptions I've heard by people, I was able to go. I was so high, literally, emotionally, and happy and so energized. I didn't actually sleep for about 24 hours afterwards, and I didn't feel fatigued at all. It was incredible. So anyway, no, I don't get paid for promoting this book, just so you know. And hopefully I've put the cover of the right book on there. Now I'm going to pick up the speed a little bit because this video is getting really long, and that bothers me a little bit. But it would be derelict of duty to not say to you, if you're going to do these kind of activities, and as I've mentioned before, I went in blind. I had no idea. I didn't understand the importance of grounding. When you work with that really high vibrational energy, you've got to ground afterwards. There's anchoring. And for me, I became extremely ungrounded through that period of time. And while it was beautiful to go, up to that high energy, life, our physical existence is cyclical. So the further we can go upwards, obviously we can go downwards that far as well. So we've got to have a balance in there to avoid sinking down to the absolute depths. I suppose it's a bit like the Wheel of Fortune tarot card that we've got here. If you don't put a little wedge in there, that thing's just going to keep spinning, okay? By doing regular grounding and anchoring, we stop that cycle going down to the depths, if you like. And so what I really struggled with at the same time of going so high was I found anything that was earth-based, like the X turning up in my life, to be super confronting and just really, really challenging and even depressing at times. I'm just going to refer to my notes here. Because I got to that point where it was like, okay, we've all got a divine spark, and I understand that, and I can forgive you, and you know what I mean? But I didn't understand. It was this lack of understanding why people could be as malicious as obviously my ex-husband was every time he turned up. And that fed, shall we say, disillusionment in humanity and people. And at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is judgment, okay? I just couldn't understand. And so it used to throw me in a bit of a downward spiral. But the other thing is too, that I've made some absolutely, in hindsight, insane decisions. I was getting this energy, and I was actually doing some really good manifestation stuff. But what would happen, for example, is, I would put out to the universe, because I was struggling financially at the time, that I would get the money come in for paying the rent or something like that, because money was a problem for many, many reasons. And anyway, what would happen is I would manifest the money, and then at the last moment I'd think, oh, it's okay, I'll go and spend it on this, whatever. I'm not even going to go into that conversation. Let's just say I made some really stupid decisions, a bit like there's an old parable, I think it's called, where a family is sitting on the roof of a house during a high flood, and they're praying for a miracle, and they're praying for Jesus and all the rest of it. And then a guy turns up in a boat, and he says, jump in, I'll take you to the land, and you'll be saved from the flood. And they turn him away. The family on the roof turn around and say, no, don't worry about us. Well, I'm fine. Jesus is going to save us, right? And what they do is they actually are the instruments of their own demise, if you like. And so pretty well that was what I was doing at the time. I was going up really high, I wasn't rational, and I was making a lot of cray-cray decisions. So you must ground. If you're going to go high, make sure you ground afterwards. I haven't got the grounding techniques on my website yet. They are due to go up very soon. And I think that's saying it behooves me to say to you and explain to you what the problem was with me accessing that high vibrational energy. And that was because I was working on my top chakras, okay? I was so focused on the higher chakras that I neglected the basic fundamentals, which are the foundations for accessing the higher chakras, okay? If you and I say this again and again, when we work only on the higher chakras, because we like the idea of that, not only can you make these erratic decisions that I've made, but it's not sustainable, is where I'm going. Because, as I said before, I had the topsy-turvy. I hadn't learned how to do the balance. And what I would have been better off doing, and what I always encourage people now, is work on the base chakra as a first, the base chakra being, of course, your survival stuff, like putting a roof over your head and food in your belly and paying your utilities, that kind of thing. When you've got that sorted out, then you can feel safe to actually go into the sacral chakra, look at emotional control, looking at the victim mentality that might be sitting in the solar plexus, because of course I was a victim at the time. If we look at what a victim is by definition, I certainly had been, and I was still living trying to find my power, if you like, trying to get a balance of, when we talk about power doesn't have to be control of other people, but control over my own personal environment. I also had not worked on, in fact, can honestly say back in those days, I didn't know anything about a Kundalini chakra or even an earth star. So, I was, perhaps as time went by, I started looking at the sacral chakra, but what I learned later was the Kundalini chakra is the one where all of my fear was embedded. And the fear and the lack of working through these lower chakras is what leads, I just want to reinforce this, what leads to the instability and unsustainability of the higher vibration stuff. It means that we're going to the high levels for a bit of a holiday, if you like. And there runs a risk with that, I can honestly say too, that when we've got a lot of pressure in our earthly existence, like let's say if you're in a war zone or you're in an abusive relationship or whatever, or recovering from one, as I was, we can actually rely on that energy as a form of escapism rather than dealing with the stuff that we have in our life. So because I've worked with the psychiatric patients as well, I've known people that will go and meditate for like 8 hours a day and be quite transparent. They like it out there. They like the voices. They like the spirits that they see, all of that kind of stuff. But they're not actually living their physical earthly life because they're out there with the fairies, if that makes sense. Now, I'm going to give a big push to Shakti Gawain here as well, actually, and thoroughly recommend her, especially when it comes to developing clairsentience. And this is another one of my books that's gone missing. So today I've actually gone and bought about 4 of her books because I can't remember exactly which books that I had back in the past. Either way, I was introduced to her creative visualizations in the form of CDs, and that's how long ago it was. And I used to put these on in the evening. I would be burning off some lavender oil, shall we say, as an essential oil. Now, that also was what we might call claircognizance, because nobody had ever spoken to me about protecting the environment when you're doing spiritual activities. And it turns out that lavender oil, I was using it because I understood that it was a relaxant and helped people to relax, to go into the meditative state. And I used to light the candles for ambience. Now, of course, you'd like to think that if I'm going to mention using a candle, that people wouldn't need to be reminded that you can start a house fire with a candle. So if you're going to use a candle, please make sure you've got a proper candle holder and that you don't put it on wood, that it's properly protected. When those tea light candles burn down, if you don't have it in a candle holder, it can actually burn your wood dressing table, stuff like that. So be very careful and don't place it near windows or curtains. Okay, so the benefits of candles are that they not only create a sense of ambience, but they're also, and I believe it to be a case of, that they will burn up any dross or stagnant energy in the atmosphere or environment where you're trying to meditate, which is basically what a creative visualization is. It's a guided meditation. Now, what I liked about Shakti stuff was they all had intention and purpose with them. As part of the activity, you were, and I now know, I didn't know it at the time, she encourages you to use your sense of smell as part of the experience. Things like hearing, what do you see, what do you hear, what can you taste, is there any smells? So you're really working on those clairs, which includes the clairsentience. Now, so far, what I've given you as far as developing your clairsentience is the stuff that we would, do the quotation marks of. It's spiritual stuff, it's energetic, it's impractical, I guess. It's non-physical, non-tangible type activities that I've given you. But there is more that we can do, which is accepted mainstream. And this is the mindfulness activities that will often be recommended to people that suffer from anxiety or mood disorders as part of calming them and emotionally regulating under stress. And with this particular activity, it's a very simple one. You just have to sit outside. If you can't walk, grab a seat, have a cup of coffee. In the garden, preferably. You can walk while you're doing it. You can actually be doing a gardening activity. And what you're doing is a series of steps. And for me, the way I do it, and I believe the benefits of this are not just because it enhances your clairsentience, but it's also very good for grounding and also anchoring and connecting to your earth star, okay? And that's just through being active and outdoors. But either way, what you do is you run through a series of steps, which is you ask yourself a question: what can I see? And you pay attention to it. So let's say in this image here, the person is working in the garden, they're looking downwards, they go, oh, I can see a blade of grass, right? And I can see on that blade of grass that there is an insect, okay? Something like that. Or, and this is where the clairsentience comes in with the expanding awareness, what do I see on my peripherals? Okay, what can I see that is almost outside my range of vision, but there's something in the corner of my eye, and you nut it down. And then the same thing, you ask the what can I hear, what can I smell, what do I feel? And when we talk about what do I feel, there's two kind of aspects to it, which is why I've put what do I feel, that's the emotional, what's going on inside of me. You can take different approaches to this. Oh, I can feel a little bit of anxiety, or I can feel some butterflies in my stomach, something like that. What do I sense becomes a case of the sensory stuff. This is the clairsentience. What do I sense? I can feel tingling on my back. I can feel the wind blowing the hairs on my arms, something like that. There's a gentle breeze. What do I sense? I can sense my thighs on the chair. You know what I mean? Things like that, the pressure of the seat on my chair. So these are actually mainstream tips that I'm giving here. And I hope I've answered your question fully about what can I do. I'm sure there are other ways of doing things, and I look forward to other people giving their experiences. Or if you want clarification, do let us know. I'm going to jump in with the channel update now. So before I do that, though, just a reminder that we do have the local event that happens on the second Wednesday of every month. So that is coming up in about 9 days' time by the time I load this video. And just a reminder, at these events, this is a social event. We do play with our tarot cards, but it's not a psychic development group. I don't teach people skills when I'm there. I might actually share information with people. I take along my crystals. If you want to buy a crystal, that's fine. There'll be some for sale. If you want me to bring along a particular crystal, let me know, okay? And I'll see if I've got it in stock or what I've got available and that kind of thing. Just a reminder, Karen is not always available. I haven't spoken to her yet to find out if she's going to be attending. And Karen, of course, is the person that does the mediumship readings. And last time we had our event, there was a Welsh lady there, Olwen, who was doing some tarot readings as well. So as far as the website development goes, well, what can I say about that? Just that it's almost driven me completely and utterly insane, okay? So I have actually spent a lot of time on it over the last few days. I had a lot of issues with the formatting because I can build it up to look, for people that are using their desktop computer, as I do. I don't use my telephone. I have to format it for that. And then it's supposed to have this interactive format where if you're using your telephone, you can see it. But what's been happening is it's been losing the formatting. So over Saturday and Sunday, I actually spent about 12 hours on the website because I really wanted to get at least the chakra content completed before I did the Sunday yarning. So this is part of the reason why Sunday yarning was delayed. But anyway, where we are currently at, after much ado and jigging around, I've currently completed all the content for all but one of the chakras, and that would be the Kundalini chakra. I've just got to put the content up for that. And because this is the last one, I don't think it's going to throw the formatting out. And I'll be very glad when that's done. If I had more time, I would revisit my experience of forcing the Kundalini chakra open, which caused me great physical pain. And is not a recommended approach, but at the same time, it is what it is, and I put it out there and I asked for it and it happened, so thank you very much. But anyway, so we only have the Kundalini chakra left, and then that page is completed. And all things being well, I will have the Kundalini chakra content completed, if not today, tomorrow, because there's not a lot to add to that. It's simply from a time management perspective, I'm actually focused on doing some of the crystal content and some of the channel content. I'll go back to the website once I've done that. But anyway, when I return to the website development, yes, I will finish off the Kundalini chakra. I think I've got the spade. I've done the page for the spiritual hygiene and the sacred breathing together already. I think I've done it. I just need to link it in properly and put the pages in. And from there, I'm going to look at the centering and grounding content. And if I haven't done the purification of the aura, I'll put some strategies up there as well. That's the next step anyway. So now we're talking about the crystal magic content. Yep, okay. I have got some more crystals arrived in the post, and I have ordered some more. And then I have actually decided I want to order some more because I'm really looking actually at getting some crystals for myself as part of me working with them. But anyway, as far as the content on the playlist goes, the Prehnite video is up, and Prehnite is now one of those crystals I'm trying to add to my collection again. And I was actually hoping to get some of the Prehnite with the Epidote, but I'm thinking I'll probably end up buying the Prehnite with the tourmaline. Anyway, that video's up, and I'm really liking the idea of working with Prehnite. The Epidote video has also gone up, and I've got to admit that after doing the attributes of it, as much as I haven't been drawn to it historically, I am actually drawn to working with it now in the green form. So I'll be keeping my eye out for some Epidote, but I've got to be honest as well. I don't really want it in the tumbled form. I want it in that really nice dark green, almost black colour, where it looks a bit like tourmaline in the photos, but obviously it's Epidote. Anyway, that video is up as well. I'm going to be putting the video up on Staurolite tomorrow. So after I finish this video, I plan to give myself a bit of a break and then go and record the audio for this. Staurolite is also called the Fairy Cross, or I think it's even the Fairy Bridge Stone. It's a crystal that I absolutely love. I used to have a bit of this as well. And I think it's, if you're not familiar with it, I would recommend that you actually at least get the buying tips if you're planning to get this particular crystal, because I found it quite interesting when I was doing my research on it. It's not part of my collection anymore. It was part of the collection I lost, and I was given it by a prospector actually. And I've got to say, looking at this image here, I don't think that's real. Okay, so I probably will change the image before I load the video up, just because this looks too perfect, and I mean, how convenient that it's got a little cherry right in the middle of it. I think that might be a fake one, okay? And then on Thursday, I'm going to load a video on Crocoite rather, which is an absolutely, as you can see, gorgeous, gorgeous crystal. It's not particularly common. It's found in, I think, Tasmania, if my memory serves me well, which is not perfect at the moment. But either way, it's an absolutely brilliant looking crystal, and my intention is to load that one on Thursday. Oops, what am I doing? So, my friends, if you've made it this far, I just want to say, look, thank you very much for being part of my journey. That's about all I can share with you today. It's a lot. I know it's a long video. But until the next video, I'm going to say, look, love you, leave you. Have a wonderful day, blessed week. Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye for now.